Congressman Carlos Gimenez is the former mayor of Miami-Dade County, serving from 2011 to 2020. Now he serves Miami-Dade's residents on the federal level, representing Florida's 26th district in Congress. I was just telling him what a great district it is. He's got the Everglades, he's got the Florida Keys, and he's got a lot of other cool stuff in between. Congressman, it's really great to be with you today. Look, COVID and so many other issues, hurricanes, natural disasters, but also, this pandemic has been a real disruption. So when you look at the last, 18 to 24 months, I think it can either be a story of disruption, also be a story of resilience. And last time I was down in your area, I sort of felt like you felt business coming back, you felt small business innovating, and I felt a lot of strength. I don't know, it feels more wobbly today, but can you give us a snapshot of what your constituents are feeling?
Look, I think that probably South Florida and Florida in general probably rebounded faster than most of the nation. When I was mayor of Miami-Dade County, we did have to shut down for a while. This is in the early stages of the pandemic. But then we put into place things that made it safe for businesses to open, with the idea of never having to close them back down again, knowing that the virus is going to go through its cycles. No matter what we did, it would go through its cycles. But we wanted to make sure that those businesses that were open, and as they started becoming open, that they remained open, but they did so in a safe manner, and that's exactly what we did in Miami-Dade County. And the differences in the policies here, and also the economic policies, statewide economic policies, and also local policies, made it a very attractive place for people to come. And so I see that we are rebounding. We're rebounding very strongly. Our tourism sector is rebounding very nicely. Our construction never ceased. Our real estate market is going through the roof, not only in Miami-Dade County, but Monroe County too, the Keys. It's just you can't find a place. And as soon as a property comes online, it's a cash business almost. And so we're seeing a very strong rebound here. We've had a little bit of a setback. We had the Delta variant come through now. We're seeing that also starting to ease up quite a bit, and I still can see the economy rebounding. One interesting thing, though, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this around the country, is that a lot of small businesses are having a really tough time finding people to work in those small businesses, and so we need to find a way to get those businesses up and running at 100%. Because all you see here are we're hiring. They just don't have enough people to fill the positions.
Well, I've seen the same thing, with a minimum wage rate in a lot of states. If you go to, West Virginia, you go to, rural Maryland, rates are up there because the employment levels or the employment staff aren't at least immediately available or evident. What do you think is driving that down there? And, again, one of the things we've been getting to in this series of looking at Minneapolis and Philadelphia and the dimensions of various parts of the community and what they needed to come together. What do you think the reason is that a lot of folks haven't yet come back into work in these jobs that are open?
Look, the number one reason and I've talked to a lot of these owners, is that the unemployment benefits were actually, people are getting more to stay at home than they were to come to work. And that was a sentiment that was echoed over and over and over again, especially from restaurants and bars and small businesses, that they just couldn't get people because it was, for those folks that were getting unemployment benefits, it was more profitable for them to stay at home. And so as these unemployment benefits start to ease and wane and go away, I would expect that more and more of those that are staying at home are going to come back to work. And the wages have gone up because there is competition, fierce competition for the workers that are out there that are coming back to work. And so I would expect that to continue. But look, today my wife and I went to one of our favorite bagel places for breakfast, and it was closed on Monday. They'd never been closed before, and the reason was lack of workers. And that's a problem, throughout Miami-Dade and Broward and Monroe County.
You know, there's one way to look at this, Congressman, where we look at the businesses that we know and that we use and see and figure out whether they were resilient and able to innovate. And there's the other side of it, which I've been down to Miami so many times. It's the next businesses, the people taking risks and the kind of innovation environment, the ecosystem. Is the financing there? Are we mentoring people and incubating the right way? What's the state of all of that when it comes to small business and your constituents as you're looking forward and not just where things are now? Are there things that, when you talk to innovators and small businesses out there, that they need that ought to be on our radar screen?
Well, during my time as mayor, we set the stage to create the ecosystem for innovators, entrepreneurs, and the tech sector to come to Miami-Dade. We invested in something called Emerge America, the huge tech conference that happens here now in Miami. Back in 2012, Miami-Dade put about $1 million into that conference. We invested in accelerators throughout Miami-Dade, knowing that eventually Miami-Dade, because of the infrastructure that we have really good infrastructure here for tech, but also we needed to set the stage for that ecosystem to start to thrive. And that's why the first Microsoft Innovation Center that was in the United States was placed in Miami. Endeavor, all those things started to come to Miami. And I knew that it was going to happen. And I knew that a lot of the economic policies of some of these states like New York and California were going to start to drive away some of their innovators. And they were going to be looking for a place to land. And they're landing either in Texas or they're landing here in Florida. And so we see a lot of people moving from California, moving from New York into Miami-Dade, a lot of people with a lot of money. That's causing a crunch on our housing, especially our upper end, housing here in Miami-Dade. Investors, those funds, those hedge funds guys, they don't need to be anywhere. They can do business anywhere they want, and they're all coming down to Miami because of the ecosystem and also because of the friendly business environment that we have. Miami has been ranked as the top city for startups in the United States for a number of years now. People don't know that. It was a pretty well-kept secret. But Miami had a really good tech ecosystem and entrepreneur tech system. And we also, because of our diversity, we have diversity of thought. More people here in Miami live that were not born here. And I'm talking here as the United States. So we have this real interesting mix of people and cultures and music and tastes that make it, that's where entrepreneurs and risk takers, they want. And also we invested in culture. And so we have a real strong cultural scene here in Miami that we didn't have in the past. And all that is attracting people from around the world.
I've always been interested, in this series, we've kind of looked at some communities that have not enjoyed the sort of fast track that others did. But I've been down in Miami-Dade, and I think you've got one of the best educational institutions in the country in Miami-Dade College. But you also have met so many other educational institutions down there that's sort of churning and bringing this diversity together. Just real short, I'm fascinated because I sort of feel like you folks are getting it right. Is my impression right about that? And two, what can other parts of the country that have a harder time, with the racial divisions, with the opportunity divisions that you see in other parts of the country that were made very clear by COVID, what are you getting right they could learn from?
Well, look, we had our racial divisions here back in the 70s and the 80s. We had some, pretty deep schisms here, but we worked through that. We do have a great community college. I think the largest community college in the nation is Miami-Dade, College. We have great universities here, University of Miami. FIU is a really well-kept secret. Research facilities that they're now creating. And that university is really booming. And it's going to be one of the largest universities, in terms of enrollment in the United States. And so our public education system during the 70s and 80s was frankly not very good. And for a time I served as a city manager of Miami, and knowing that when people came trying to relocate to Miami, what was the things that they were looking for? Good educational system, good transportation. And so at the education, we really put an emphasis on improving our educational system here. When I was mayor of Miami-Dade, I was head of something called One Community, One Goal, where we targeted industries and then integrated our educational system to make sure that we were going to be producing the employees and the candidates for these companies that when they came down, they'd have the type of people that they wanted. That was all integrated in that thing called One Community, One Goal. And that really, helped us turn the table on that too. So education, culture, creating the right ecosystem, educating and graduating the right kinds of people so that the companies, when they wanted to look at Miami, said, yes, we can go there. They have the right ecosystem, they have the right infrastructure, and they have the right people infrastructure for us to move and thrive in our community.
Thank you for that. Let me squeeze in a quick D.C. question, Congressman. We've been talking a lot about the infrastructure bill, the reconciliation tax bill that will come along with it. We're all debating whether it should be $3.5 trillion, $1.5 trillion, no trillions. I mean, it's just sort of, not a debate about as much about what should be in it and what shouldn't be in it. So from your perspective, what's important with what could be one of the largest investments in infrastructure in this country, and what blind spots do you think there are in this debate that you're worried about?
Look, I mean, obviously, on a $3.5 trillion, that's way too much. We are spending way beyond our means, and so that's going to be very problematic on the budget side. On infrastructure, I think we all support infrastructure. The question is, how much and what for? And so we certainly need to improve our roads and our bridges, what's called traditional infrastructure, but we also need to do things a little bit not traditional, like how do we invest and how in trying to incentivize companies to come back to the United States, especially those companies that are critical in creating the supply chain that we've seen is really been disrupted by this pandemic, and that somehow we are dependent on other nations to supply us with critical infrastructure. Especially on the supply side, supply chain side. So that's the kind of things that I'll be looking at. How do we incentivize those companies to come back? How do we incentivize those companies not only just come back to the United States, but come back into the Americas? And so one of the ways that we can do that is incentivize companies. Hey, maybe you can't come to the United States because of our labor market, maybe too expensive. But you know what? There's a lot of good labor down in South America, Central America, which will improve their quality of lives if you move there, because now you're giving them employment, et cetera, and elevating their quality of life. And then also kind of ease the pressure on the migration that we have coming through our southern border. So that's the kind of stuff, that I'll be looking at. And then on technology, we need to be, the number one in technology. We need to be above, in front of everybody and way in front of everybody. And frankly, right now we're not. And if we're not number one, certainly China is catching up really quickly, and that really bothers me. It bothers me. Okay, that's what's happening, and I'm concerned about it. And so those are the things that I want to see us spend on infrastructure, all traditional and some non-traditional, that strengthens our position, our competitive advantage in the world.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, there's so many areas of your work that overlap with my interests on technology, competition, what the next generation big investment for the country are. I should tell our audience that Congressman Gimenez is a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, the Homeland Security Committee, and the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Those are committees about the future. Very grateful for your time today representing the 26th District of Florida, and he's got the Everglades. So, Congressman Gimenez, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. And thank you for having me, and it'll be a pleasure for me to come back whenever you want.
Thank you, sir.